Hey everyone, welcome back to Rima Reads. Today I am going to be talking about my September wrap up. I know it's like the middle of October when I'm posting this up, but better late than never. So I read 5 books in the month of September and I'm quite proud of myself because I read almost all of the books on my TBR. The only one I did not read was A City of Blades, and that's because it's a sequel to A City of Stairs, and I realized that I forgot everything that happened in that book, so I started reading it, and then I was like, I can't follow this storyline, so ended up not reading it. I'll probably, if I ever want to read it, have to reread City of Stairs. So anyways, let's talk through the books that I did read. The first book I read in September was Jade City by Fonda Lee. Follows the Call family, who are like kind of like the mafia, like a crime syndicate, one of two in this city called Kekon. The Call family, it follows 4 points of view. So Lan, who is the head of the clan, also known as the Pillar. Hilo, who is the Horn, which is second in command and in charge of like the forces, like in charge of like beating people up and stuff. Then Shay, who actually left the clan a couple years ago to go forge her own path, find her own way, and then she's recently returned back to the city. And oh shoot, I forgot the last guy's name. Austin, some kid who was kind of adopted by the Call family, and he goes to school training to join the family. In this world, particularly on this island that they live on, Jade is a powerful source that can grant people extra human abilities, but it's also very addictive and not everyone can do it. So if you're like not part of this island, you often have less resilience to jade addiction, and it can cause lots of issues and basically wear out your body until you die. People who are born on this island have like a slightly higher resilience to it, but if they overexert themselves from jade, same thing can happen. So it's a really cool magic system. The world was also really cool because like it's pretty modern. Like they have airplanes and fax machines and things like that, but they don't have like the internet or cell phones. So it's fairly modern, but with this like jade magical elements, and there's lots of politics from outside this island that play a little bit of influence, but the main conflict is between the Call family's No Peak clan and then the other clan, the Mountain clan, and the rising tensions between them in the city that looks to be starting a gang war. I thought this book was amazing. The action is just there. The characters are really, really well built out. My favorite of the 4 POVs was Hilo, because he like you hear everyone else's point of view when they talk about Hilo, and they're like, he's an unrestrained dog, like he just fights all of this stuff, and then you hear his point of view and he's just like, I love my family and I will beat up anyone who hurts them and I respect women, and I'm just like, yes, we stan, awesome. Anyways, I thought he was just such a cool character, but I liked all 4 points of view. They were all very, very interesting, and it's just like a good story, but I don't want to give too much away about spoilers. So I highly recommend. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars, knocked off 0.5 of a star just because the beginning is a little bit slow. But once you get past like part 1, then it really, really picks up and you're just like addicted. So highly recommend. So the next book I read was All the Stars and Teeth by Adeline Grace. This was a YA fantasy novel, and it follows our main character, Amora, who is a princess of this land, and on it there are 5 different islands, and each of those islands have a specific magic ability that they can use, and her family is the only one who will have the magic ability to master souls. And it's very, very important in this land that everyone only masters one magic ability because there was this whole thing in the past where if you mastered more than one magic ability, like the darkness would, some dark creature would come up and basically destroy the land. And so everyone is only allowed to master one magic ability, and her family's job is Master of Souls, and they have to contain the darkness. And then in order to ascend to the throne, Princess Amora has to prove to the people that she can actually basically contain this darkness inside of her and contain this creature. So she has to perform this like really, really brutal, dark, basically torture soul magic in front of everyone and prove to them that she can like control herself, control this creature without going too far, but she ends up going too far, and so the people do not trust her, and she's kind of thrown in prison, unable to be queen, and she decides to escape on a boat with a hot pirate, and they have a fun seafaring adventure. Her fiance joins her, and they end up picking up a mermaid on the way, and so it's a very fun seafaring adventure. It has some really, really cool, I really liked the magic. I really liked how dark her magic was, and I thought the whole plot line was very interesting. I did end up giving this book 3 stars because there were a decent amount of things I did not like. First off, the writing. There were just too many descriptions. Like, there's this page where she goes and meets her mom and dad, and she describes everything her mom is wearing, and then her mom gives her a gift, and she describes the gift in detail, and then she goes and looks at her dad and describes everything her dad's wearing, specifically the crown, and then her dad gives her a crown, and she describes that in detail, and that was just like one whole page of just too many descriptions. I could not handle it. This book is also like full of tropes. Not that necessarily tropes are a bad thing, but it's like very predictable. Like I said, I did enjoy the plot, so I guess that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, but it's just stock full of all of the tropes you can think of. The other thing I did not like is the main character, Amora. She is shown to be like a princess who will do anything for her people. The reason she goes on this seafaring journey is to help save one of the islands. She is trying to regain her throne because she thinks she'll be the best leader for her people. So everything she does, she tries to do, is to be a good queen. However, she just like treats her fiance like the dirt under her boot. She like treats him so badly, and it doesn't make sense to me why. He's generally shown as a nice guy, and she gives a very good explanation on why they are engaged to be married. Like, it makes a lot of sense because he has like healing magic, so he could, like, if you chop off his arm, he could regenerate it, and since she needs like bones and blood and stuff for her magic, it makes sense why they would be such a good pair. And he's like not that bad of a guy, but she treats him so horribly. It made me so angry. And I know they like address it as a plot point, but I feel like this book could have been so much stronger if, instead of him being in love with her, making this like love triangle, because she's in love with the pirate guy, so instead of making it a love triangle, they could have made it so that they both know they are engaged to be married and they're good friends, but they aren't actually in love with each other. And I think that could have just been a more compelling relationship instead of her treating him like trash and him being in love with her. I guess I'm just tired of that trope. Overall, I felt like this book was very juvenile. Like, it had really cool concepts, but it was just meant, I think, for a much younger audience. There's a lot of like feminist moments in this book. Like, one of the parts, she like fights a whole bunch of people and then gets on her period and like bleeds through her pants, and then the boys are like, oh, shocked, you're bleeding, and she's like, no, I'm just on my period, and they're like, oh, and I'm just like, that, like, I appreciate the attempt to put feminism in there, but that's just like very very basic. It's just very, very basic juvenile feminism of girl power. Like, I think this book's a fun debut novel. I don't think it's like a bad book, but it's definitely not made for me. I ended up giving it 3 stars. The next book I read was Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. I loved this book. I did a whole review on it already. I'll link it above. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it, but I highly recommend it, especially if you're living in America, in our capitalist, consumerist society where we aren't in touch with nature as much. I feel like this book really helps you appreciate and understand indigenous practices and ways, and also helps you consider things that you can do in your own life to get more in touch with nature. I think it's just a beautiful book. I highly recommend. 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. I feel like this is a highly anticipated read by everyone, and it was really good. It follows 5 folks who wake up and end up becoming a borough of New York City. So there's Queens, Staten Island, Bronx, Brooklyn, and Manhattan. And all of these people wake up and realize that they're becoming like a manifestation of their borough. And the city itself is becoming alive because of all the people and the dreams and the hopes in this city. And so their goal kind of is to find the city of New York, who is also a person, and then help bring this city alive. But there is this like entity, like an alien. We don't really know too much about her, but we call her the White Woman, or Woman in White. Go with White Woman. Who's trying to stop the city from becoming alive. So all of these 5 people who are not connected end up like trying to find each other, and then trying to find New York while battling this Woman in White. I thought this concept was so cool. It's really, really interesting. I've never read anything like it. It's very, very New York. I mean, I've been to New York a couple of times, but I'm not like a New Yorker, and I really want to know. I'll probably watch some videos after this of just like what real New Yorkers thought of this book. For me, it felt very, very New York. I thought she did a lot of research on New York to really make these folks embody the city. She also tackles a lot of like important topics like racism and sexism and homophobia and transphobia, and like there's just like so much packed in this book, and she does such a good job of handling it, showing like the diverse place that New York is. And like the main villain essentially is a woman in white. This woman in white woman uses a lot of the privilege and the power that she gets from being a white woman in this space to hurt the boroughs, most of whom are like people of color and not straight. I thought that was just, it was a great like way to tackle all these subjects and issues in such a compelling way. I really liked that. My favorite character in this one was Bronx. I thought she was super cool. Really enjoyed her. So I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars because I don't want to give too much spoilers, but I thought that the main villain had some really good points on why she was doing what she was doing, and none of the characters besides Staten Island, who is also framed in a not so great light, really addressed her reasoning at all. And I thought there would be more conflict or discussion about that. Like, obviously, I think the woman in white, you know, is not a good alien entity person thing. Like, she's definitely an allegory for what I discussed earlier, but she had a point about when these cities are created and who they hurt that I thought would be addressed a little bit more. maybe they will in the other books. So I am very much looking forward to that. But yeah, I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend this one also. And the last book I read in the month of September was The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. So this book follows our main character, Rin, who is a war orphan taken in by this family who is trying to marry her off, and she decides no, she doesn't want to get married. So instead she takes this test that basically places the smartest students in school, and she studies her hardest, ends up placing into the top school in the country, where she is kind of an outcast because she's like a poor war orphan, while many of these people are more, most of the people there are like part of rich military high up families. So she has to really prove her worth by being there. The school is kind of brutal. They teach mostly like military based things, and they expect a really high standard from the students. And so it follows, the first part of the book follows her in this academy life. Second, third, 2/3 of the book, the other 2/3 of the book follow the war that's brewing while they're at the academy. I'll say the academy portion of this book felt very reminiscent to Name of the Wind, which I really did like the first book, Name of the Wind. I just hated Wise Man's Fear. So that was good. I did enjoy the academy and seeing Rin grow and learn, and like there were hints of like other things happening in the background and mystery and magic for the gods, and I thought that was also so cool. The other 2/3 were following the war and Rin's part in it, and it was also really good, but it is also really dark. Like, put every trigger warning you can think of on this book. I did not know this going in, so it was a little bit of shock for me, but if you guys know anything about the Second Sino-Japanese War or the Rape of Nanking, that's what this is based off of, which was really like a horrific time in history, and this book does not shy away from any of the things that happened during this time in history. And so it gets really dark really quick. So I really enjoyed this book. It was beautifully written. Rin was such like a protagonist who's been through so much, so much pain and loss and suffering, and while she's not necessarily like the good guy, like she does some really like shady things, you do root for her and want her to win. And I'm very excited to see where her journey goes. I ended up giving this book like 4.5 stars, mostly because I was not prepared for the darkness, the horrific things that happened. So just like mentally prepare yourself if you're gonna read this book, and it'll be fine. I did pick up the second book, and I'm very excited to read that too. So highly recommend. So overall, I thought September was a great reading month. I liked all of the books I read, with the exception of the one YA fantasy novel, which wasn't necessarily bad. It wasn't for me. It was a good time September. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Comment below if you have any thoughts on these books or any recommendations on other books I should read. Thanks. Bye.